Hello, Dr. Nichols. My name is Nicholas Denton. I want to thank you for coming in here. You're definitely somebody that I look up to. I first read T. Cal and read the introduction, and I thought,
I wrote the introduction to P-Cal, yeah.
T. Cal, sorry, that's what I meant to say. And I just think it's really refreshing to look at psychedelics as a medicinal tool professionally like this. And in that I kind of think about what is the correct medicinal application of psychedelic medicines. And I look like to the traditional cultures a lot as well and see what they're doing. And they talk a lot about, like you said, in the definition of a psychedelic, there is the difference between the transcendental or the religious experience and then the psychedelic experience and the mystical experience. And they're all kind of tied together. One thing that was in there as well was dreaming. And one thing I've seen in the studies is talks about 1-irigens, which are plants that are classified to enhance dreaming activity. And I realize there's a lot of psychedelics that kind of overlay into there, and that your definition also included dreaming in psychedelics. So I was just wondering really if you could speak on the pharmacology or if there is any medicinal application or any kind of clinical research into compounds that affect the dreaming consciousness, or if there's nothing there, because I read the literature, there's not a lot. But if there's nothing there, then also like the differentiation between the mystical experience and the religious experience versus the psychedelic experience, and why they don't always go hand in hand.
There was a paper that was published years ago by a woman named Clara Torta. And she took, I think, 2 volunteers into a sleep lab. And then when they were asleep, slowly infused the low doses of LSD. And in both cases, the EEG went into REM sleep. So it induced dreaming right away. That's the only time I've ever seen anything like that. I think when you want to talk about differentiating a religious experience from a psychedelic experience, it's really not possible, because the people that, I talked to a student here at UNC a couple years ago. He had graduated, he had a degree in, I think, electrical engineering. He had been graduated summa cum laude, whatever, and he didn't know what he wanted to do, but he'd heard about psychedelics. So he came to my office, and what he told me was, I read a lot of literature about psychedelics and I want to have a psychedelic experience. And I went to this music festival and I took a substance. He didn't tell me what it was. I suspect it was LSD. He said, I took a substance. I thought at the music festival, there would be lots of people who would be able to take care of me if I had a problem. And I was sitting up on the grass above this band playing. And he says, when the substance kicked in, I looked down at the grass, and the grass turned into little people running all around. And then I knew, I sank into the ground, and then I was projected up in the sky, and I was looking down at my body in this place. And he said there was this intense feeling of love and of being, sort of part of everything. And so he decided he wanted to use these to treat people. He says, I see that they're using these now to study their medical application. He said, so what do I need to do? Because that's what I want to do with my life now. I want to treat people with psychedelics. And his mother was divorced, and he told her what he did. He shared everything with her, and she was shocked at first. And he said, no, Mom, this is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. It showed me what I want to do. I worked with another guy who became a psychiatrist. And that's why I told this guy, I said, well, in a few years, these things may be legal. Go to medical school, get a degree in psychiatry, find somebody who's using them, and then there may be a place for you. But then I worked with another guy years ago that was a psychiatrist, and he was from Texas, actually. And he said he took a psychedelic, and he was trying to figure out what he wanted to do. He didn't know, he was nearing his senior year in college. And this big neon light lit up in his eyes. It said, become a psychiatrist. So he went to medical school and became a very successful psychiatrist. So I'm not sure, there's an overlap there. For people who have taken, say, 5-methoxy-DMT, which some people call the God molecule, that experience will put people in touch with some kind of they say a being, a godlike being, and people who have been atheists sometimes say, I'm not sure I'm an atheist anymore because of that experience. So it gets kind of I think very difficult to discriminate when you say a psychedelic experience versus a religious experience. In treating people at end of life, the first study that Charlie Grove did, which we had to take down because the woman's husband never got over her death, but she had a melanoma in her intestines. I didn't know you could get them in your intestines. She had a melanoma, and they didn't completely resect it. And he got the slides and when you take a tumor out of something like that, you have to resect out past the margin of the tumor. If you leave any bit of the tumor there, it'll just grow back. And they hadn't resected out past the margin. She was in California, and the medical center didn't dissect it out past the margin. And he got really upset. He went back, says, you need to go back in, and they refused to do it. So he sued him, and after she died, won, I think, $2 or $3 million lawsuit. But anyway, so we had a video of her, and she became very depressed when she got the cancer diagnosis. She quit doing all the things. She was an executive with the Educational Testing Service, went around the world setting up, the GRE tests and things like that. It was an Asian woman. And so when she came out, I asked her husband, I said, could you see a difference in her? He said, she came walking down the hall and she was just beaming with this big smile. The difference is like night and day when she went in, when she came back out. So she had an experience where she said she had seen her cancer as this big formless black thing. And she looked at it and she said, I'm not ready for you yet. I still have life to live. And it kind of disappeared. And that all of a sudden she felt good again. She said, I'm not dead yet. I still have life to live. Why should I be depressed? Completely changed her life. Now, it was a life-changing experience. People that I'm really an advocate for people treating dying people who are, death is really an existential distress that many people just don't deal well with. And for people who have been treated with cancer with the psychedelic, psilocybin especially, they lose their fear of death. They want to get in contact with estranged siblings and so forth. Their whole attitude toward life completely changes. So, was that a religious experience that transformed their lives, or what exactly was it? So I'm not sure how you can differentiate, what is a religious experience or mystical experience versus a psychedelic experience, because a high dose psychedelic experience, almost by definition, is a mystical experience. I'm not a philosopher, so that's probably the best I can do.
That was a great answer. Thank you very much for taking your time.